Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Wake Up with Giants radio show. I am Lady Luck, and I'm joined in studio by Nick the Gentle Giant, Ryan the Lion. Oh, I almost couldn't say it, Ryan the Lion. Nicole Cola the RPG, and our special guest co-host today, Hollee Vance. And I'm so excited about this incredible topic today. We are talking about how the vagus nerve regulates the body. Hollee Vance is our resident expert in the vagus nerve. And, we were just talking before we got on the show about how Nicole dealt with the vagus nerve in her healing journey, and so did I, in two different healing journeys. So I'm really excited to get into that and really find out how much it really does affect in our bodies. So with all that, I'm going to welcome Hollee and bring it right over to you to introduce yourself to all of our listeners.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me, guys. I am thrilled to be back on. So I became fascinated with the vagus nerve when I was studying for my coaching certificate through the Chopra Center in Ayurveda. And so an aspect of that, or one of the pillars of your internal pharmacy, is talking about the vagus nerve. And so the vagus nerve regulates 5 different body systems, and it is just so incredible. And I'm feeling tongue-tied in this moment. But yes, it's
actually directly tied to the tongue, right?
It is.
Yeah.
So I should start activating it now to bring me down a little bit. But yes, so I am super excited to share some information with you.
Sometimes a drink helps loosen things up.
Right.
Yeah, my water does wonders. Hollee, can you tell our listeners, for any of our radio listeners who hadn't seen your Wake Up with Giants TV episode, can you tell all of our listeners, just give us a bit of a background about what you do, what your area of expertise is in your coaching business, and how you got started?
So I wanted to be a life coach, well into my mid-20s, and just constantly was like, oh, I don't have enough experience. I don't know what I would, how would I help people? And I just kind of poo-pooed myself and pushed my dream off. And over the last 2 years, I've really pushed hard to make my dream come to fruition. And I'm doing it now, and it is amazing. So I wanted to create a really solid foundation to offer services. I have some jingle bells, so I'll try not to.
That's awesome.
And so then I decided to get a coaching certificate in Ayurveda through the Chopra Center. So I did that earlier this year. Before that, I managed retirement plans. I was in corporate America, and I just never felt fully fulfilled. I love teaching. I love educating and helping people. That is definitely an aspect where I thrive. And so finally, I just decided, you know what? I need to really put some action towards making these dreams come true. And so that's when I decided to go back to school and really focus my efforts there. And I have 2 amazing sons, 11 and 17. And my 11-year-old is now on the end stages of COVID quarantine. So hallelujah. And yeah, my drive for life is being outdoors, being active, expanding my mind, and really focusing on the simplicity of life.
Awesome. Can you tell us how you were introduced to the vagus nerve and how it became something that you delved into?
Absolutely. So like I said earlier, while I was studying, so internal pharmacy is all about how we have the power within our own body to heal ourselves. It's all about listening and honoring what our body needs. And as I was learning about it, the vagus nerve really stuck out to me because it's the longest nerve. And like I said, it does impact 5 of our body systems. So we've got our endocrine, immune, respiratory, cardiovascular, and digestive systems. That's everything from basically our head all the way down to our hip area. So it can help regulate so many different things if we just tune into it and activate it, so we can strengthen our body systems, so we can actually live healthier lives.
So at the go through those again. So there's 5, right? The endocrine, the immune, the cardiovascular, the digestive. What was the other one? I missed
Respiratory.
it. Respiratory.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so there's a lot of ways that somebody could use it. So I'm wondering, when it regulates like the endocrine system, for example, what benefit would that do for somebody, and how would they tap into that to be able to do that just on that specific system?
Okay. So endocrine system is dealing with our hormones.
Okay.
So if we want to activate the vagus nerve, there are many different methods or modalities to do so. So if you think about the basics, hormones are being produced within our body. So if our body is functioning as it's intended to, then our hormones can be produced as needed. And the messages being transmitted between our body systems, let's just say the endocrine system, and our brain, so that we know exactly how much hormone to produce, and if it's in excess or if we have deficiencies and things like that. So a lot of this is through bodily fluids. So if our body, which is 70% water, is not producing enough fluids, then that fluid flow is going to be slow. Those messages are not going to be transmitted between the endocrine system and the brain. And so our bodies are not going to be producing enough. And so then we're going to be feeling, let's just say, lethargy. Maybe we're having hormone imbalances where we're more moody, things like that. And so by simply just activating that vagus nerve, we're calming the entire body down. We're allowing the blood flow to focus on our core. I feel like it's really important to point out this. So there's the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system, which is all part of our autonomic nervous system. In order for us to have balance, we have to have those systems in equilibrium. A lot of us are functioning most of our lives in our sympathetic nervous response. So I translate the sympathetic as an S to stress. We're in stress mode all the time. We're at full capacity. We're reactive. And not tuning into our body. And so by activating the vagus nerve, we're pulling ourselves out of that stress response. Think fight, flight, freeze. And we're actually activating the parasympathetic nervous response, which is our rest and digest phase. And that is aligning the systems, the 5 systems, and allowing the blood flow to come back to our core. And you're going to be producing more bodily fluids inside. You're going to be getting those messages transferred from the body systems to the brain. There was a point there that I wanted to make that it's just left.
I'll actually ask.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'll ask a question if it doesn't come to you. If it came to you, then go ahead. I don't want you to lose
It did,
again.
yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sometimes it takes a second. So while we're in the sympathetic nervous system response, so if we're thinking fight, flight, freeze, our body is ready for a perceived threat. So we're ready to hit the road running. We're ready to freeze and camouflage in our environment. We're ready to fight. So a lot of our blood flow is being sent to our extremities for this. So that means that we don't have the proper blood flow to our core body systems, endocrine system, as you were asking about earlier. And so we're not getting the proper functioning from these systems because we don't have proper blood flow to them. So by activating the vagus nerve, you're calming the body down. You're pulling yourself out of that sympathetic nervous response, like I mentioned, and you're actually opening up the blood vessels within the body so blood can properly flow, and you're getting oxygen-rich, nutrient-rich blood to these body systems, allowing for proper function, which is going to allow for proper production of bodily fluids to send those messages. So I hope that came through clear.
Yeah, that's absolutely fascinating. And the question I was going to ask was around like natural and holistic treatments. I have this treatment done called Aroma Touch, and it's essential oils, and there's like 12 different essential oils, and they're used in a certain sequence, and there's a certain motion that they use down the back of your neck, like all the way down your spine, the back of your neck and down your back. And it was just always explained to me that these essential oils and the motion of the treatment itself shut down your nervous system and just put everything at neutral. But it never occurred to me that it was affecting the vagus nerve. So is that what's happening? They're bringing blood flow to the vagus nerve when they're doing that?
Absolutely. It sounds like a few different things. It sounds like they're getting your the fluid within your cerebrospinal fluid. So by focusing on your spinal column, you're getting some good massage in that area to help with the flow. The aromatherapy is soaking into your skin. You're smelling it. It's getting into your body, which is also opening up portals throughout your body. So between the scent and the sensation of massage down your spine, absolutely 100% activating the vagus nerve.
So doesn't the vagus nerve run down kind of the ear, right behind on the side of the neck, right here on both sides of the body?
It does. It actually originates back here in
Okay.
The base of our spine. And then vagus means wanderer in Latin.
Okay.
And so it travels through here. It actually has quite a few nerve endings in your ear. So you can actually activate it by lightly massaging your ear and around the ear. Yeah. So it comes through, it touches your larynx. So it has to do with speech, swallowing, down your throat, into your chest. So obviously that's where we're getting our respiratory system, cardiovascular, and down into our digestive system.
Yeah. So I'm curious. I had COVID in 2020, right? Lost smell. It's the first thing that went, lost taste. And, smell is one of those things, the only sense that bypasses the thalamus and goes right into the brain. And now with that gone, I've noticed a difference in my brain processing, like my
cognitive.
My to pull memories or words or thoughts or tie them together has been affected, and so, and I've, in the beginning, I had a lot of brain fog, but it's been over almost a year. It's been right at a year right now that I had that, and it impacted things. So is there a way that it still connects, even though that might be impacted? Does the vagus nerve still get influenced by smell? That would be the thing, like odors or things like that. Can they still influence even if there's
100%.
Yeah.
So I've had a few classes that I've offered for people who had long haulers from COVID. So the long lasting symptoms from COVID.
Yeah.
So smell is a huge one, and you can improve your sense of smell by activating the vagus nerve because of all of the nerve endings here. So the number one thing that I tell everyone to do is gargle with warm salt water. Not only is that going to be activating the vagus nerve, you're activating these muscles in this area. The warm salt water is going to be cleansing for your mouth, so you're improving your oral hygiene as well. And the vagus nerve specifically gets activated on the out breath. And if you think about gargling the entire time, it's out breath. And so you're getting a lot of benefits. My bells. You're getting a lot of benefits from just something simple like gargling.
That's interesting.
You don't want to gargle in. That would be good.
I mean, you might choke a little.
Yeah, just a little.
Just slightly.
Yeah.
That's the opposite effect.
You won't die. You'll just choke a little.
Maybe.
I'm actually wondering, we've been talking lots about activating the vagus nerve. I'm actually wondering if we activate it differently for different purposes. Like you talked about the 5 different functions. Do you activate it differently for all of those 5 different functions, or is it the same way that you activate it, and how do you activate it?
That is a really great question. Activating it all together is beneficial. You can do particular exercises for different things. Like for anxiety, I feel like cold therapy, which is also activating the vagus nerve, which I can explain in a moment. I feel like those two go very well hand in hand. Did I miss something?
Yeah, Ryan's
Ryan's gurgling. Yeah.
I just activated it. Sorry. Keep going.
He's acting.
You look different. You can take that cast off now.
It's gone.
Right? So because anxiety, it's like you can't even get your brain is going on overload, and it's thought after thought after thought. You can't catch your breath. And so if we go back to basics, when you're having that type of a response, it is the sympathetic nervous system. So where's our blood? In our extremities. What happens when we're exposed to cold? The body's like, oh my gosh, we need to save the core of the body, send the blood to the core. So by pairing the cold therapy to activate the vagus nerve, and it's that kind of jolt to the system to kind of quiet everything down for just a moment so that you can catch your breath, so you can remove yourself from that endless mind chatter.
I used to take cold showers when I had anxiety really severe. I'd take cold showers. And then last year, a buddy of mine, Mike Garrick, went cut a hole in the ice up in Farmington in Utah. So we went up and just sat in the pond water, in that ice water, as long as we could. We dunked, we went under, held our breath, regulated the breathing, kind of that Wim Hof method.
Yes.
And maybe you can speak to that. How does the breathing, in combination with things like that, like cold ice treatment or ice water treatment,
Mike might do that again. He does it like every year.
So I hope so.
I hope so, because I want to go this year. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I haven't done any events out in the wilderness doing it that way. I've just done pre-organized events for ice baths. So a few months ago, September, I had a hysterectomy, and I'm not a fan of pain pills. And so after a couple of days, I was like, I can't do this. The way they make me feel mentally. And so I started combining the cold therapy with the breathing techniques. And it is amazing. It's almost a euphoric feeling because it's a form of meditation. You're calming your system down, and you've got the cold therapy. I mean, the two of them together is like vagus nerve activation on steroids. I mean, it just can't. For me, I just feel like that is the ultimate experience.
It's like peanut butter and jelly, right?
Right. They just go hand in hand. But it's so healing to the body because, first of all, the breathing, you're getting oxygen-rich blood. You're also, if you're taking big belly breaths, you can't see my hands, but they're on my stomach. You want to use your diaphragm. Most of us are superficial breathers, mouth breathers, and it's shallow and they're short breaths and everything's in the chest, when really all of our breaths should be in our belly, expanding that diaphragm. Because if you are using your diaphragm as it's intended, then it's actually helping to get the blood, the oxygen-rich blood, more fully through your system.
Yeah, I actually have a doctor friend who subscribes to that deep belly breathing, but he says that it should be done 10 breaths every hour of your waking day. And I said to him, oh my goodness, I couldn't. I mean, it's not actually a lot in doing it, right?
You break it down,
breaths. Yeah, it's not actually a lot, but I I was overwhelmed by that. I was like, oh my goodness, that's a lot in a day. And he was talking to me in the context of oxygen to the brain, because I had suffered a couple of concussions. And so I was having brain fog and all of that kind of stuff. So he was talking about it in terms of getting oxygen back to the brain and how important it is to really have that belly breathing. And he talked the same way about how most people are breathing that shallow breath. So when I actually take kids through that kind of breathing in yoga classes, we'll start down with a breath, but we'll actually follow the breath to different places. We'll focus it in our belly and we'll focus it in our chest so that we can see the difference. And they'll speak up and tell me, which one was easier and which one wasn't. And it really helps them in focusing it in different places. It helps them to see where the work needs to be, right?
Oh, 100%. My cousin's been working with, she teaches kindergartners, and she has a book. I can't remember the name. I want to say it's like Breathing with Brother Bear or something of that nature. Anyway, they go through and teach kids how to do breathing exercises and simple, cute things where it's like blow in your hot chocolate. And so they just focus on intentionally breathing this slow breath into this fake cup of hot chocolate. Super cute and so effective to teach these kids.
What's your friend's name?
Lauren Krumperman.
Okay. I had another book that was called Breathe Like a Bear that was showing those kind of breathing exercises.
It might be that one. Yep. And somebody else just commented, Breathe Like a Bear. I couldn't remember the name. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, I think Breathe Like a Bear is by Kira Wiley.
I've just been eating like a bear.
It's hibernation season.
Yeah, don't we all during the holidays?
Yeah. So I'm curious. I looked up something on microglia, like in the brain, right? So the brain can't have enzymes like the rest of the body. And so when it's digesting and breaking down material, it doesn't function the same as our body would as far as breaking down material. And so when we go to sleep and the brain flushes it out, it gets rid of all the negative stuff that's been in there. But there's an article that I just pulled up here on microglia and the vagus nerve, and how the vagus nerve is important because it regulates the communication between the digestive system and the brain.
Yep.
And so if there's any fault or any issues with the digestive tract, which COVID, that's been a thing that impacted mine severely. I haven't been the same since. And so there's been a shift. I'm wondering if you know about that, or if that's something you could share around of how that digestive system can impact the breakdown or the cleanup, because that's what the microglia do, is they clean up the brain instead of having enzymes.
So the microbiome, so the bacteria that we have in our belly, in our digestive system, we want to make sure that it's a good mixture of bacteria, because we have good bacteria and bad bacteria because of everything that we're consuming, everything that we're digesting, how healthy we are, how balanced our systems are. So I don't know if this is going to touch on exactly what you're referencing.
I just, go with what you got. It's perfect.
But if you think about everything that we subject ourselves to, we digest.
Yeah.
And so if we reference that into what's going into our body and how our body is digesting fuel for us to function. So if we're not consuming the right amount of foods, and we're not balanced, or we're not in equilibrium with our vagus nerve, with the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, then our body's not able to break down the food or absorb it the way it should be. And so that is going to affect the brain. It's going to affect everything, because we are consuming food, but our body's like, well, we don't have the fuel or the capacity to fully digest this and allow the nutrients to go where they're intended and the waste to go where it's intended, because there's a backup in multiple systems. And I mean, what goes first? So we start to lose the cognitive. That's COVID attacks the nervous system. And so that's why activating the vagus nerve when you have COVID can be very helpful, which is what we've been doing here. My son's doing little exercises. He's like, why am I doing this? I'm like, you're just activating your vagus nerve. It's okay. But sorry, I totally got off topic there, but
we're good at getting off topic.
Yeah, we are. And
this is a really cute book, by the way. I didn't even know this existed in my house. But Breathing Like a Bear.
Cool. You have one.
I've got one.
Breathe Like a Bear. And then Ryan just showed Sitting Still Like a Frog too. And when my son first was navigating anxiety, he was in grade 1, and he had a counselor that gave him Sitting Still Like a Frog, and it came with a CD with meditations on it. And that book was a lifesaver for us. That gave my son so many strategies in grade 1, grade 2. They're both incredible books.
There's one that is a lion breath in here.
Yeah.
So that helps.
Yeah.
It helps a lion.
I actually use Kira Wiley's, a lot of her resources. I met her in Washington, D.C. at the Children's Yoga Conference and have all of her CDs and use lots of her books in my classes. She's got some great resources.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm going to
silence.
Yeah.
Yes, you dive in, Nick.
Nicole, I'd wonder around Lyme disease, with that impacting you, like, did you study some on the vagus nerve around your illness, or do you have some, how did that impact you? Like, what did it do to your body? And then maybe Hollee, you can kind of help us understand what might have happened or what's going on with that. Would that be all right?
Well, I didn't know really about it until I started seeing things just recently pop up. So the doctors that I went to was Western medicine. I found a doctor from Thailand who I sat down with. She was a resident at the University of Utah. All the doctors there had done the residency on the West Coast. I got my disease on the East Coast, and it took a Thailand resident doctor. I said, please look at me from Eastern medicine perspective, not Western medicine, because they were just trying to diagnose my leg because I couldn't move my leg. My foot was stuck in a foot drop. And she did an extensive workup on Eastern medicine, right? So when the doctor called me and said, she took 26 vials of blood, they did every test you can imagine. But I didn't know a lot about it until just recently when I've seen it pop up on Lyme disease, like social media that I follow. So Western medicine, nobody has ever mentioned anything about this until recently. And then we have you on the show. So I'm super excited that you're here because I feel like I'm getting so many answers and so many like an action plan. Like I feel like I have an action plan right now. Like I can't sleep usually at night because I feel like there's just like phlegm or something in the back of my throat. And I've tried gargling with the salt water, but I don't think I've done it long enough to get results. And then with my Lyme disease being so sensitive to cold, just the thought of being in ice is like, it scares me because it's so painful. But if I'm going to get results like this, maybe I go with my support team, Ryan and Nick and Hollee, for this experience. I know Melissa would be there, but she's in Canada. Like I feel like I've got an actual like action plan to support me with what's going on with my body. I'm still healing. I got Lyme disease in 2007, 2008. It was 2008. So, I've had it for a very long time and I'm still healing. Nerves take a really long time to heal. So I'm super excited.
And I'm wondering if maybe cold therapy wouldn't be an ideal thing for you to do until you get to a certain healing point in your journey. Because the last thing we want to do is aggravate it. And for some people, cold can actually aggravate some of their symptoms or whatnot. And so I would really focus on the gargling, probably multiple times a day, at least in the morning and at least at night. And I would also suggest trying lemon ginger infusion in the morning or at night, either one, because that's going to be a good anti-inflammatory. And then I would really just focus on breathing techniques, just anything that you can do to strengthen your vagal tone, but in an easeful manner. Because if you can strengthen the vagal tone or your vagus nerve, same point, but just two ways of referencing it. If you can do that and heal those nerves by ensuring that your body systems are functioning appropriately, then you could progress to things like cold water therapy. And it could be as simple as just putting your hands in cold water to begin with and not, or splash some cold water on your face and not really do like a cold shower or a cold bath or anything like that. But even massage might be good too. Since you're experiencing, you said like phlegm here, you might want to start massaging your ears. And whether I send you something directly or if you want me to walk through a simple little massage now with you guys, I don't know.
You know what? I would love to do that right after the break. I think that's an excellent idea to go into that and and talk about physical ways to do that. I think this is a great point to go ahead and take a break, and we'll say goodbye to our radio listeners for the next 2 minutes. We'll see you soon. So Holly, we're still on social media. We'll just take a 2-minute break here and then go back in for the second half of the podcast.
You know what I kind of gathered too is I was sitting here listening to all this stuff and I've never really dove in. What's the word? Dove?
Yeah.
Thank you. It's the pain meds, I think.
We're inventing. That's what I would say.
We're inventing words. You know, it's in whatever I was drinking earlier. But sitting still like a frog, this breathe like a bear, like they're simple things. Mm-hmm. If this stuff would have been in play when I was a kid, like for ADHD, hyperactivity, different things like that, the breathing and the simple exercises and then right now I can see this as a super useful tool for kids that are having a hard time with their emotions, because we're going into schools and we're seeing these kids that are now emotionally they're a year or two behind. And then they don't know what to do with their emotions, and so it's coming out in retaliation, in anger, in hitting, in just
confusion,
all kinds of stuff like that, right? And if they knew some more of these tools that are just so simple, just simple breathing, that could help them to be able to then relate their emotions and their feelings of what's going on. And I don't know, I'm kind of excited to
when they're an adult. These books. I mean, how better prepared are they going to be for real life, having learned these coping mechanisms? Because that's all it is.
I've been a mess for 40 years. I could have just been like a frog.
Yeah. First of all, let's just say storytime yoga. That's why I do what I do.
Cool.
And second of all, say I just had that discussion with my son's principal today, because some of you know my son got punched in the face 2 weeks ago. About 2.5 weeks ago at school. He's in grade 8, and the school was dealing with the child, but not dealing with the emotions of the child and of the rest of the class, who the child was bullying, and dealing with the aftermath, the emotional aftermath, right?
Should we hit this? Should we talk about this on come back into it?
Yeah,
talk
you know
about
what?
This,
we
and
will.
Then also go into because I think this is great.
And go into the massage.
Focus towards kids because kids are as adults we're just big kids anyway. So go into that useful ways to use this, the meditation, all that stuff. So let's pop into that and tell that story, Melissa. Let's
I will. Well, I'll bring us back in.
Perfect.
Welcome back to the Wake Up with Giants radio show. I am Lady Luck, and I'm joined in studio with Nick the Gentle Giant, Ryan the Lion, Nicole Colada RPG, and our special guest co-host Hollee Vance. And today we're talking about how the vagus nerve regulates the body. And as we left at the end of our first half there, we were talking about massage and ways to stimulate that vagus nerve. But while we were on break, we started relating to kids, and Ryan started in talking about the book that we were talking about in the first half, which is Breathe Like a Bear. And we were also talking about what was it called? Sitting Like a Frog?
Sitting Still Like a Frog. Yeah.
Sitting Still Like a Frog. And, we started talking about emotions and how emotional intelligence and emotional resilience isn't taught in the schools. And so I'm going to tell you a little story. I was just actually speaking to my son's principal this morning. I've had several conversations with the principal and the superintendent of education over the past couple of weeks, because my son, who's in grade 8, was punched in the face at school a couple of weeks ago. And they were moving into disciplining the child who punched him, and figuring out ways to physically make my son safe at school. But nobody was addressing the emotional health of the student who did the hitting, of the rest of the students in the class who had been bullied by that student. And, it seemed like it was an afterthought. And through my discussions, with the principal and the superintendent, they are putting some things into place. They're bringing some mindfulness in. I'm actually going to be going in and doing some yoga classes, specifically around the chakras and how to clear our chakras and how our emotions are connected to our chakras with the class. They're bringing in some anger management experts. They're bringing in this, they call her CYW. It's not a social worker. It's like a child and youth worker. So they're bringing in the child and youth worker, and they're talking about respect and self-esteem, and centering some lessons around that as well. And I really found in speaking with my son that he knew what anger looked like inside of him. They have this continuum, this emotional continuum that they teach in the schools here. And it tells students how to identify their emotion on the continuum, okay, on that scale. Where am I in this scale? But it doesn't tell them what to do with that emotion, what strategies to use to calm that emotion or sit with that emotion. It doesn't tell them what to do with it. It just tells them how to identify it. And so my son can do that. I mean, I teach that at home and I teach that in my yoga classes. So my son can do that for himself. But when I spoke to him about anger and what anger looked like in his classmates, and spoke to him about, whether or not when deciding whether or not to step back from someone or engage, he was hit in the face because he was standing up for someone else who was being bullied at the time. So if he had understood what anger looked like in someone else, maybe he would have stepped back from that situation and not gotten involved. But I found that he didn't really know how to recognize it in someone else and know whether it was appropriate to be in support of that person or to spare himself and step back, and to know, what it looked like when anger escalates and all that kind of stuff. So I'm thankful that the principal has been very open-minded to be bringing all of these resources in, but it's not something that our school system readily teaches. I wish it did.
Yeah, I wish ours did as well. I mean, I feel as though if we could teach children at a young age how to have healthy coping mechanisms, how to identify emotion within themselves and within others, and how to handle it, they would be so much better prepared. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Absolutely. Well, I'll just put it right out there right now that I do offer these yoga classes over Zoom into schools, into libraries and all of that. I did it all summer in one of the local libraries. So if anyone out there needs that resource in their schools, I have my chakra series for the older kids, the older classes, and then I have storytime yoga for the younger kids, for 2 to 9 year olds. So and that's what we talk about. We talk about emotions. We talk about having choices. And we regulate our bodies in class, and in each class. I think it's so important. And, the principal said to me, we had a few rocky conversations at first because, I wasn't getting answers and we weren't getting anywhere. So we had a few rocky conversations at first, and then we had a lovely conversation on Monday and a lovely conversation today. And I said to the 3 ladies that I was speaking to today, I said, if you need anything, if you need resources, if you need to run anything past me, I'm here. Call me anytime. I don't bite. Like, call me. We can have a conversation. We'll get through it. We'll figure out what needs to be done. And the principal actually commented on my son. He's been today is the grade 8s take turns every month. 2 students are chosen every month to do the announcements in the office. And so he's been in the office for the month of December doing the announcements at the school. And she said that my son was, one of the nicest, polite, lovely, put together children that she had ever met. And so, I thought that was really great. It really touched my heart to hear that about my son.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm sorry that he experienced that, but it sounds like you're doing an amazing job with him, and you're providing these amazing services to help other children. So I think
thank you. I think it's so important. And, I actually asked today if the school board contracted people in to do that, or if it was just, if they were using resources, that they already had within the school board. And she said no, that they just used whatever resources they could find. They're literally doing internet searches, and teachers are just pulling things up, trying to teach it. and trying to get it apart. They're not actually hiring people like that to come in and do it, which is sad. I mean, there's so many people that are experts in that, and it's so important. I mean, you could do that instead of a gym class. You could be doing that, right?
100%.
Yeah.
I would be curious on the meditation that you mentioned earlier. Maybe toward the end of the show, we can finish out with something like that, Hollee.
Yeah.
If that's a possibility. Learning to regulate in childhood would be ideal, right? And I teach my kids what I can, and they're going to take what they take, and hopefully they listen to some of it and retain it. Seems like they do, but the goal is to just make sure it's in front of them in every form possible, because as adults now we're trying to reparent ourselves and learn these behaviors, these tools as adults, while trying to juggle our lives, our relationships, our careers. And it's really challenging. A lot of people really struggle with that, especially right now during the holidays. This is a hard time for a lot of people. So do you have some wisdom you can share around how to regulate through the holidays? I guess that would be kind of a spin,
100%. Well, we as individuals are ever-changing beings, and we are living in a changing environment that's happening more rapidly than we've experienced before. Now we're having interactions with people who are constantly changing as well. And so we need to make our own alone time a priority so that we can bring ourselves back to balance, so that we're not constantly doing the to-do list. We're not hyperactive and constantly going. So I think setting time aside, whether it be a couple times a day for just a minute or two. I mean, it literally is that simple to bring yourself back into a centered state instead of being caught up in the chaos or the mind chatter or the to-dos or the expectations of everyone else. So a few things that I do is I do recommend that people set a timer a couple times a day for deep breathing. Take 3 deep breaths. You could do that at 3:00. I am part of a group that does it 3 breaths at 3, and it's throughout the entire world. So it's kind of like a breathing wave across the earth, which is cool to think about. You can also make sure and take a moment before you're going to say yes to something and really check in with your body and mind. How am I feeling about this? Do I have the time? Do I have the capacity, whether mentally or emotionally? Am I capable of showing up? If not, it's okay to say no. So honoring those boundaries, that's huge. And lastly, I would also say, make sure and get plenty of sleep. I think that is so huge that we don't honor ourselves. We take care of other things like our home, our cars, our things better than we take care of ourselves. And we really need to shift that.
I want to dive down that rabbit hole of sleep, especially in cleaning up the brain. I mean, that's where the brain heals itself. Somebody said it's where the brain repairs itself from the low-level brain damage of the day, right? And so if you're not getting enough sleep, it's really not doing its job properly, because the brain fluid will go around and clean it up, and then it flushes out. And that's what sleep does, is it heals that. It recalibrates things. It aligns what you learned during the day. It consolidates information. And the vagus nerve, that communication, having that rest and digest period where your body is actually in a calm state, where your brain's saying, hey, we're good, your body's good. I mean, that would help you get into a deeper sleep. And we're so hopped up on Monster drinks, right, Ryan? We're 70% Monster and 30% water.
I'm trying. I'm really trying. I have a water bottle here.
But we do have different sleep cycles. Like I know, like Mr. Morris, he'll be up till like 2 or 3 in the morning. I'm in bed
with my
9.
people.
Like I'm like a crookedy old man, dude. I'm out. So do you have some suggestions around that?
Early in the morning. Nick's up early in the morning. Ryan and I are the night shift, but Nick is up super early. So
same with Melissa.
Yeah, I'm with Nick. 9:00, I'm done. I'm like, we're past my bedtime right now. Like it was everything I could do to like stay awake to be on the radio show.
I always heard that early to bed, early to rise makes a man tired and gives him sore eyes.
That's probably true. It rhymes.
Yeah.
Well, I start work at 7 a.m. So I have to get up at 6
Yeah.
to get my meditation in before I have to be at work.
But it's not really about when you go to bed. It's more about the amount of sleep that you're getting, quality sleep.
You know, I beg to differ on that.
I was
one.
gonna say, I don't know. I'm gonna combat
and
that.
I'm gonna tell you why. Because I've recently learned. I'm wagging my finger at you. I've recently learned when I was waking up in the middle of the night, or waking up really early, waking up in the middle of the night, and then unable to fall asleep again, I was questioning the time that I was waking up. And I recently learned that there's I think it's Chinese. It's like a medicinal, like a wheel, and it shows on the wheel what's happening inside of our bodies every hour of the day during that period of time. And so there's actually like bodily functions that are attached to those or assigned to those hours. So I was seeing things like 5 o'clock in the morning was like my liver function, and or different times were different functions within my body. And I was noticing what was happening in my body at those times, and it really was corresponding. And so there are certain hours in the night where your body does this certain healing, and it corresponds to all of those things. So if you're awake during those times, then you're not getting that healing and you're not getting that reset happening. And I see Hollee nodding her head.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with the
like Einstein.
The wheel. I can't remember what it's called, but
I am familiar with. So if you're waking up in the middle of the night at a particular time all the time, that is in reference to a particular organ, and I believe that's what you're referencing.
Yep.
But as a whole, there are cyclical patterns everywhere, day and night, the year, month, seasons, all of that. And just as the nature has these, so does our body. So as the sun is coming up in the morning, it is stimulating melatonin to no longer be produced within our body. Now it's time for us to wake up. So you should rise with the sun. Our digestive system is at its peak during lunchtime. So you should not be consuming, let me rephrase that. My apologies. You should be consuming your largest, most nutrient dense meal between 12 and 1 p.m. in the afternoon. And then as the day begins to wind down, your body will start producing more melatonin. So as it's setting up for rest. So your digestive system is getting ready to slow down also with that melatonin production. So you should consume your dinner, which should be a light dinner, between 5 and 7 p.m. Shouldn't be any later than 7 because you want to allow your body's natural internal systems to do their thing. So then from 7 until like 9 or so, you should reduce the amount of light that you're exposed to so that it's not preventing the melatonin production, so that your body.
TV's a no.
Yeah, TV, phone.
Why is it so hard?
I know, right? It's
Nick's like.
No, but it's true though.
Got a spotlight.
Really,
Stop exposing yourself. Wait, that sounded bad.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, I just looked it up.
Sorry, everyone.
I just looked it up too. It's actually called the traditional Chinese organ body clock.
Yeah. And
so like Ryan is awake at 2 o'clock in the morning. At between 11 and 1 o'clock in the morning, you're supposed to be in cellular repair. You're building blood cells. That's your gallbladder's time. And then from 1 to 3 a.m., you're detoxing the blood. You're supposed to be in deep sleep. You're detoxing the blood, rest and recovery planning. Like Ryan's missing out on all of that by being wide awake. None of that's happening.
Oopsies.
No, but I really believe in that. And I will look that up if I wake up at a
Is there a way to like speed up that process to make it go quicker so I can get it done in like 3 or 4 hours and then
no, so there's this thing where everyone thinks that instant gratification is ideal, when in reality true productivity happens over the course of time.
I do cellular repair at like
you're just describing the giant's journey. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. And you know what, this chart actually says between 5 and 7 a.m., you should wake up and meditate. It's your large intestine. You should wake up and meditate between 5 and 7.
Yep, 100%.
Don't shoot on me. I'm gonna sleep in. No, I like that. It's interesting. You know, they're and Chinese culture, if you go all the way back, I mean, they really studied the body and energies and things. And so it's interesting what they knew back then without all the technology that we have. And we're just stepping into this stuff. It's kind of mind blowing. It's pretty.
It really is.
Yeah.
Well, it's fascinating because it's been around for centuries. It's ancient wisdom that we just haven't allowed ourselves to incorporate into our life. And now's the time, guys.
Now's the time. I love that. It's never too late. Now's the
right?
time.
It never is.
It never is.
I love that. I cannot believe the time. I just looked at the time. I feel like that just flew right by. I'm going to ask everyone. I'm going to do a little round table and ask everyone. I'm going to go to Hollee first to give us kind of our final thoughts, your final words of wisdom for our listeners.
Ooh, you know, are we ever going to have a full equilibrium all the time? No, because as I stated earlier, everything's constantly changing from what's happening on the inside to what's happening externally. But the more we can allow ourselves to come back to center on a more regular basis, the easier it is for us to bounce back quicker and to recover from illness and injury faster. So it's never too late. And just few practices a couple times a day to bring yourself back into center is really all it takes.
I like that.
Thank you. Nick, do you have any final words?
Yeah, you know, it's amazing to me that the body is designed from the inside out and the outside in. So it's a sensory receiver and it's a transmitter. And the vagus nerve is one of those ways that you can hack some of your emotions by regulating a nerve, you know, that runs through your entire body. So recognizing that it's there, for one, is a big thing. There's a lot of people that don't even know that they have one, but you have one. And so being able to regulate that and use it to offset your emotions is a big thing. And having the tools to do that, like you guys just shared, is huge. So I love that we were able to talk about that as a tool, you know, in what we're creating. And so thank you for that. Thank you, Hollee.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome too.
Thank you. Ryan, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah. So like there's a lot that I'm learning and excited to learn about with all of this. And so I'm grateful that this show came up now, and it's probably fairly timely for a lot of people because they can start a new year. And that's typically when, you know, we decide, hey, I'm tired of what happened last year and gonna make a new start. And so
new year, new you.
Yep, exactly. And so I'm gonna dive into these books, even though they're kids books. This is right up my alley. So I'm gonna dive into this, drink more water, less Monster energy drink. Maybe we can make that ratio more like a 40 or 50% Monster instead of a 70% Monster, and then really start being more mindful of what's happening with my body, and getting more, just consistent, good quality sleep.
Yeah.
And so thank you so much, because then I'm also going to start to dive in more of these tools. And as we go into schools, we can share some of these as well with the kids that they might be able to use and put into practice quickly, that are going to help them. So thank you so much. We'd love to have you back too. You like your wisdom, the things that you're doing are so amazing. Oh my gosh. And besides, you're fun, and we had fun show, and I learned something from having fun and being serious too.
I'm so glad.
Ooh.
Science and fun. Science can be fun, folks.
It is.
Absolutely. It is fun. Absolutely. Thank you, Ryan. Nicole, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, mine is be gentle with yourself. Small hinges swing big doors, And you're exactly where you need to be. I got so much healing, love, light, hope today from Hollee and what she shared. I've been on my healing journey for like 14 years, and guess what? It's getting better. Like, at this, you make me better, Hollee. I love you so much. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so honored. And thank you for contributing to my healing today. And Nick, Ryan, Melissa, so grateful for you guys as well. Thank you for being here, sharing all of this with our listeners, and being part of my healing journey. I have so much hope today that I'm going to be able to sleep before 11 because I'm not going to have going on. So excited. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. I'm so glad that you talked about micro steps and micro shifts, because that's what I was going to leave as my final word for everyone, because we've had so many great tips through this episode today, so many great things that we can try out. And I heard the words new year, new you, and I don't believe in New Year's resolutions, because I think that we set ourselves up for failure. And we set ourselves up into that mindset because we start them and then we don't finish them when we fall off and we drop off of those resolutions. So I believe in just finding new ways and micro shifting and finding ways to implement new strategies, and just trying to be a healthier, better me without making a resolution at the beginning of the year. It can start at any time of the year, and forgiving ourselves, right? So so pick a few little things that you've heard throughout the episode. If you fall off of it, it's okay. Forgive yourself that you fell off of it, and find the little micro shifts and take those little baby steps and make those little baby pivots to continue to implement those things into your life. So that's my final thought. And thank you so much, Hollee, for being here with us tonight. It's been incredibly eye-opening. You've given us some great information and lots of strategies for all of our listeners to take with them. So I'm grateful.
Oh, I am grateful as well. Thank you so much for having me, you guys. It really has been amazing. And if anyone has questions, reach out to me via email, Instagram, Facebook. You can check out my information on alignedmagick.com. And yeah, I truly just hope the best for everyone for this Christmas, and hope that it's as magical and beautiful as it can be.
Hollee, I love the way that you're being, and so I'm also going to do one better. I'm going to get your information, and I'm going to send you a copy of Steve Hardison's book. It's called The Ultimate Coach, because I'm impressed with your way of being, and so I'd like to send that to you and have you read it from your way of being, and I think you'll enjoy Steve Hardison's book. So
sounds great. Thank you. Yes.
You're welcome. Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Ryan. And I want to remind all of our listeners to join us next week, where we will be talking about how to conquer adversity and make your world a better place with our special guest co-host, John Brooks.
Love John Brooks.
Yay! I'm so excited for that show. Can't wait.
Yeah.
Cool, guys. Was that it?
That's it. That's how it is.
That was it. But do you want an after show, or are we having?
I think so. Why not, man? It's part of the fun nowadays is doing the after show. We're just kind of shoot the SHIT. You know.
Are you okay to stick around for a few minutes, Hollee?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, let's do it. After show. That was cool. Is there anything that you wanted to share that maybe you missed?
Yeah, I'll talk about concussion stuff
quickly
that I didn't share. I thought I was going to share on that, and then we just went in different ways, in different places. So
I have a tendency to do that.
Yeah, it just happens, right? We just go down those paths and take off. So I've had 2 concussions. The first one was a pretty major concussion. I was about a year and a half recovery from that one. And that was back in 2015. And then I had the second one in 2017. Hit on the exact same side of the head.
Oh wow.
And that one wasn't as bad. And was easier to come back from. But I got into some treatment that was it was kind of deep tissue work, I guess it would be called. Like it's a lot of exercises and stretches for the neck, and they had a proprietary machine, like kind of like a TENS machine that they would put you on to stimulate the muscles. And they did a lot of deep tissue work while you were doing these exercises. And they talked a lot about the vagus nerve and loosening up the muscles around the vagus nerve, because what they talked about was that when those muscles are tight around it, then it starts to constrict
like
the
an
vagus nerve. Yeah, and it starts to constrict it, and so you start to have side effects, and like the weirdest things. Like I would have ringing in the ears, or I'd be really emotional. I would just cry at anything, or I would be really sensitive to light. And then we would do those exercises, and we would loosen up the muscles, and the vagus nerve wouldn't be constricted anymore. And all of a sudden, the light sensitivity was gone. The ringing in the ears was gone. I wasn't feeling emotional anymore. Like I would just break out crying for no reason.
Yeah.
Wasn't feeling emotional anymore. And there was all of these side effects that were alleviated by just getting that constriction off of the vagus nerve. It was incredible how that was tied together in that recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you think about it, it's like a kink. I mean, I mean, not maybe this extreme, but your vagus nerve is meant to be open and flowing so that it can send those messages, transmit those messages from your gut, from your cardiovascular respiratory systems to the brain, so that it can send the appropriate messages to do the healing. But if you've got an impingement or a blockage or muscle tension that is preventing that, then it's just causing a slew of issues. Like migraines can be an issue, and the cognitive people can have issues swallowing.
Yeah.
And so by simply just doing doing breathing techniques, gargling, the cold therapy, massage, yoga, things like that can really help loosen those muscles to help open that flowing through the nerve.
Yeah, it's funny how I used to fill out a questionnaire once a month. I would fill out a questionnaire because they would see if your symptoms were getting better. And I would always think these are the weirdest. Why are they asking me this? Like, do you get dizzy in the supermarket, like walking down the aisle of a supermarket? Do you get dizzy on a sidewalk? Do you lose your balance getting out of bed in the dark? And it was stuff about migraines, stuff about, emotions, stuff about swallowing. Do you have trouble swallowing? And it was weird things. It was really broken down. It was like, rate your swallowing on water, or like a food, like a piece of chicken. Meat. Do you have trouble swallowing meat? Do you have trouble swallowing water? Soup? Like it was all these different types of foods, and you had to rate it. And it was like this. It was like a study, right? That they were doing to check everything else. And I used to think they were such weird questions, but then when you start to get into the explanation of it and why, it makes sense.
Yeah, to understand the severity, so that they can see, okay, well, how intense is the impingement, so on and so forth. Makes 100% sense.
We almost need to get Luke Bryan Smith to write a song called "The Vagus Nerve."
Right?
Somebody tag him. Somebody,
Ryan
is
go, Luke.
Eggs, right?
Yeah, like green eggs and ham for the vagus nerve.
Yeah.
Green eggs and ham. Well, there was something earlier that I was going to touch on. Oh, how you feel emotion and how it's tied to the sympathetic nervous response. I keep missing things.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just
me and Ryan reading the comments.
Yes.
Yeah.
Making a joke.
Yeah, and then Ryan and I have.
Sorry for all of my inappropriateness.
Yeah.
No,
I
you're
control the
good.
comments. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Holly. Sorry, we cut you off.
No, you're good. So if you think about the fight, flight, freeze, so if you are prone to being short-tempered, impatient, hot-headed, that is a sign of being in the sympathetic nervous system as fight response. Or let's say you run away from your problems. A situation arises and you're like, I'm out. I'm not dealing with this. So now that's your flight response to the whatever circumstances that you're facing. Or if you are indifferent and just like acting as if it doesn't exist, that is your freeze. So we have these responses in a variety of ways, whether it's to particular events, and that's our emotional response, or what's happening in our body with what we are able to do or what we have the capacity for. So I don't know. You guys, I geek out on this so much because there's so many different things that connect the dots, and I'll read a completely different book and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's cerebrospinal fluid. And that means this connects with that. It's just
was my first thought. I thought the same thing.
Yeah. Right. You're like, no.
Nick did.
I did, yeah. I just saw a thing on the Vegas nerve being like super highway. Yeah, so it makes so much sense if you're hydrated and your body has the things that it needs and that's flowing. I mean, I drive to work every morning and I'm pissed off because it's stuck, which is a creation of my own, but it's frustrating because it's not running at capacity. And that's how our bodies get. It's like when your heart slows down or you're not breathing right, your digestive system isn't working right, you get a little moody. Yeah. And so I could see how that would impact how you show up in the world. So taking care of your body, doing these exercises, I mean, it's going to impact how you be, I would imagine.
Yeah. How you are as a person, how you relate to others, the depth of your relationships. Because if you're constantly just barking at people or completely shutting them off or whatever the case may be, you're not strengthening that relationship. You're weakening it. And
unless you're a furry, then it's okay to bark. Right.
Yep. You have to have the costume to go with it, though. I mean, just saying.
Yeah.
Right.
Take it off course. Yeah.
Oh, that's probably where the term hangry was identified, right?
You
like
know,
you're not feeding your body, right? It does. As soon as we talk that clicked in my mind, that term hangry, like it makes sense. You're not feeding your body properly. And I'll tell you, I tell anyone, if you don't feed me, look out. We're in trouble. We have an issue.
You're going to go blows.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where the quality of the food comes in, because you can be eating but not nourished, right? Not have the proper nutrition, and then that shows up as hangry. And so what you eat, like Hollee was saying, what you eat makes a huge impact.
There was a lot talked about, just to unpack in this show. I'd encourage people at home. Some people like me are going, like that's a lot, but if you take just the micro shifts, right? Melissa was talking about, start with a couple things and get those mastered. Start doing that. If you're feeling some emotions come up, start sitting still like a frog, go read this book, take a few simple practices from it, start drinking more water. Just little things added up over time create giant steps.
Huge
right?
effect. Yeah. Which goes back to the term that Nicole said, like small hinges open huge doors. Or that's probably not the same verbiage, but
I like it.
Yeah, and feel free to reach out to any of us if you're having difficulty. I actually used to be in an accountability group, and we just literally held each other accountable at Sunday. The beginning of every week, we wrote out what our goals were for that week and what we wanted to be held accountable for the week. And we held each other accountable during the week, and we would help each other pivot and find those micro shifts. And when I was first getting into meditating every day, I didn't do it every day. The first week it was like, okay, I'm going to meditate 2 mornings this week. And if I didn't do it one of those 2 mornings, why didn't I do it? What was going on? Did I sleep in? Did I go to bed late the night before? Did I wake up and look at my cell phone and scroll Facebook, and I wasted my time and I had to be at work? And we were really helping each other shift that and pivot that. So, feel free to reach out to anyone on the show here to help you pivot that and move through and really micro shift.
Yeah, absolutely. I was when you mentioned doing something in the morning. So I do Qigong every morning. And I know, I'm sorry, what?
I don't know what that is.
Oh, Qigong, it's a form of moving meditation.
Oh, yeah.
It's warm and toasty. It's a moving meditation. And so it takes it's like about 15 minutes. But that's my gauge for the day. I've been doing it long enough that when I'm in the middle of practicing, if I feel like it's going seamless, I know that I'm feeling centered.
Mhm.
If I'm all of a sudden, oh my gosh, what move did I just do and what's next? Then I know that I'm out of balance. So it's my gauge as I begin my day. So when you start to add these little practices, once they become a habit, then you can start to utilize them to see where you're at on the equilibrium scale, which is kind of nice too.
Absolutely. I love that. And the reason why I do that is because it sets my day as well.
Yeah.
And I do it first thing in the morning before my brain is really awake and has the opportunity to move into, worrying about what's on the schedule and all of that kind of stuff. So that chatter, that mental chatter isn't there. But I set my energy up as well, like my energy field. And I know that's gonna be a confusing term for some, but I actually work with my energy field in that meditation. And so I'm a huge empath, and I take on everybody else's energy whenever, like I could go to Costco and come out like completely exhausted, just because I was around a million people and I just took in all of the energies. And so I set the field, or my energy field, and I expand it out and really make sure that I have this protective field around me at the beginning of the day, every day as well. And I find that really helps.
It is. It's like calibrating yourself for the day.
Yeah.
100%.
I shut down like a hedgehog. Like, don't come too close. I'm pokey.
He is pokey. He's a pokey person.
Pokey. Awesome, guys. I got to jump off, but I love this.
That was amazing.
Yeah, that was awesome.
It's 10:10 here.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you so much, guys. I truly appreciate it. I'm very grateful.
Love you,
Thank you, everyone.
Love you so much. So grateful for you.
Love you too, sweetheart.
Get back together and do this again for sure. And thanks for the tribe, everyone participating. We love you so much.
I love the comments. Thank you for the comments. Those are the best. Guys, have a Merry Christmas. We'll see you.
Have a Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.